September was a remarkably bad month for Russia. They've been taking long-range strikes. They've been losing oil production. On the battlefield, they're not making any progress. In fact, they're making far less progress than they were in the previous months, a huge percentage lower. And I'll show you that in just a moment. And the gas crisis and everything else, it's been bad. And October is not looking much better. It's October 1st, 2025, and this is what's happening today. So let's start here. A fire at the Yaroslavl refinery, one of Russia's largest, factory processes about 15 million tons of crude annually. So that's where we are today, this plume. Oil refineries on fire for some reason, says this one commentator. For some reason? What do you mean for some reason? Didn't drones hit it? Well, it doesn't look like drones hit it. It's 800 kilometers from the nearest launch point in Ukraine, and there were no drone sightings before it got there. It ranks 5th among the oil refineries in Russia. Local authorities say the fire has technogenic, not drone causes. So that would mean that there's either, well, more than likely an explosion from within, like special forces planted something on the ground, or maybe there was some kind of rocket that nobody could see or something. But there were no sightings of drones before the explosion, so it could have been either a missile or sabotage. But yeah, that's where we are. So unexplained explosion at the Yaroslav oil refinery. And then you have the Sukhodolnyaya pumping station. How to do with that? That's a mouthful. Pumping station near it. And this is also, you can see it from NASA firms. It appears that another Russian oil pumping station was attacked overnight. So that's the refinery and the oil pumping station. And so, as General Ben Hodges says, Russians are seemingly unable to stop this. So supporting Ukrainian efforts to wreck Russian oil exports will help bring a successful end to the war. I think he's right. I think this is the path forward for Ukraine. It's really hard slogging on the battlefield, but again, or destroying or limiting their ability to generate income by producing and selling oil, that's important. So I've been wondering about this now. So we're talking about 25%, 26, 27%. I was thinking cautiously optimistic. We're up to about 30% of, or a little north of 30% for oil production refining capacity that's taken offline, that just can't work. And then I saw this 38%. 38% of Russia's oil refineries have shut down. Okay, now that's not the whole refineries, but of their capacity. Gasoline production in September dropped by 1 million tons, and shortages have reached 20%. So it's having an impact. I keep showing you, like, week over week, every like 3 or 4 days, I'll show you, maybe I'll do it today, show you the economics, like what's actually happening with gas lines and within Russia as a consequence of that. Okay. Now, beyond that, there was this boom in the Kherson region. The so-called mayor of Nova Kakhovka, remember, it sticks in our minds because the dam near there has been blown up. Vladimir Lentyev was taken to the hospital with severe injuries, but did not survive the encounter with a Russian drone. The collaborator's car was a Baba Yaga drone. Okay, so what happened here, this guy was in his car. He's attacked by a drone. He's the former mayor. Well, he was the mayor of this town. Before you feel sympathy for him, the whole fact set. So was he assassinated by the Ukrainians? Yes, he's collaborating with the Russians. He was also involved in kidnapping and having a Ukrainian governor tortured. He was, and I usually don't pronounce that, but I just slipped. And he was also sentenced in absentia by the Ukrainians. So that's also going on. Pro-Ukrainian partisans, Atesh, struck Russian logistics again, putting out service railway in Chuvashia. used to transport drones from Yelabuga, that's the big drone factory, front to the front. The agent set fire to a relay cabinet between these two places, halting train traffic. Okay, so I see this regularly, where what they do is they target these relay cabinets. I'm not sure what why the relay cabinets are this important, but they apparently are. If you know, put it in the comments below. I'd like to hear what you have to say. We're learning together. Okay. What did the Russians do to Ukraine overnight? Overnight, Russia launched 49 drones. 44 were downed or suppressed. Drones hit 6 locations. So, okay, that's a pretty decent ratio. It was 49 drones and then some other missiles. So 54 is the total number. That's why it's hitting at 6 locations, if you're wondering about the math. Okay, and with that, here are some images of this. Putin's forces struck Kharkiv with guided aerial bombs, missiles, injuring at least 6 civilians. Rescue efforts are still ongoing. Kharkiv is close to the border. It wasn't just missiles and drones. They can also hit Kharkiv pretty hard with bombs. In fact, they were doing it yesterday in Dnipro. There was a strike during the day, just about noon, about lunchtime. Zelensky on the Russian attack in Dnipro, a brazen strike on civilian infrastructure, at least 1 killed, 15 injured so far. He stressed that Europe must build a joint shield against Russian drones and missiles, because, like, again, it's all civilian targets, middle of the day. I mean, this is what Russia does. Okay, see this strike? So this is Russians targeting apartment buildings in Dnipro at lunch hour. Okay, and this is what that's the blow up. Now I'm going to show you this very gently, so it doesn't actually show the thing, but that's it coming in, and I'm going slow. Okay, there we are. I could only show you about a second of that because that came in real quick. Okay. Russian strikes pounded Ukraine's major cities for a second day in a row, damaging civilian infrastructure, according to local authorities. Okay, but it was much lower than it was with 3 days ago. And then yesterday and the day before were actually really low as well, which I don't know if they just exhausted their supply for a few days or if they're building for another big strike, but okay. Yesterday on the battlefield, 920 Russians off the battlefield day over day, 1 tank, 3 armored fighting vehicles, 13 artillery systems, only 33 vehicles and fuel tanks, which I find really interesting because when I look at this number here of 42 assaults, okay, so these numbers here, the total casualties, which is close to the 1,000, which is about an average, this total casualties and assaults tend to be correlated, but there also tends to be, if there's a lower number of assaults, and this is kind of a lower number, but that there tend to be higher numbers here with vehicles and fuel tanks because now drones are going and attacking other things. I think that's why. Okay. Cross direction, Phoenix unit continues cutting off the enemy logistics. They destroyed 2 motorcycles, 2 UAZ vans, 4 cars. Why anybody in their right mind would be out there if they didn't have to be? Like, it just, again, this is so, it's just so perilous with drones in the air. Okay. And that's what slowed down the Russian advance. And so one of the things that's going very poorly for Russia is their ability to advance. And I mean, it crawled to a halt. Okay. So here is a map, or a bar chart rather. So this is September. If you go back 1 month into August, if we go back 1 month into July and June and May, and right. Okay. So this is September. Like, look how low it's gotten. Okay. Russia's advance rates in September dropped to their lowest since May. Deep State reports Russian forces managed to gain only 259 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory, 44% less than in August. And what we see is that there tends to be kind of a similar pattern, but what? I mean, yeah. Okay, 44% less than in August. So according to Deep State UA calculations, in September 2025, the 43rd month of the full-scale war, wow, 43rd month. I just heard myself say it and went, wow. Of the full-scale war, Russian forces managed to capture 259 kilometers squared. That's 100 square miles or so of Ukrainian territory. This 44%, this is 44% than last August, than in August of 2025, and the lowest figure since May. It amounts to 0.04% of the entire country's area. I mean, it's just, yeah. And this is the 12th year of Russia's long war against Ukraine. Of course, they've only been fighting full on since 2022, but Russia occupies 19.04% of Ukraine's territory in that time. They're not really looking that good. I mean, okay. Now, somebody else's calculations. I didn't run the calculations, but I'm just gonna trust this for now. If you see a problem with it, tell me about it. 95 Russian soldiers were killed per square mile of captured Ukrainian soil in September 2025. At this rate, 17 million, almost 18 million, 17,925, 265 Russians would be killed to capture the rest of Ukraine. Unsustainable. Of course, it's not going to work at a consistent rate if they were going all the way to do that. Like that's not the way this would work, but you get the idea if you just extrapolate out with a rough cut. Okay, Nemesis unit of the Ukrainian army bombarded 4 Korean Kosan 170 millimeter self-propelled guns. Those are now off the battlefield. Russian drones continue to be found in Poland following the massive incursion of the Russian drones on September 9th and 10th. So this is the 20th they found and confirmed, and it was found all the way out here in Poland. Like this got Europe's attention in a big way. They realized, oh, we don't really have what we need, and so now they're talking in earnest about drone defenses. Footage captures the moment of a likely war crime against rescuers while extinguishing fires after an airstrike. They're attacked twice by drones. A fire truck was destroyed, but the firefighters miraculously remained unharmed. Since the start of the full-scale Russian invasion, at least 622 firefighting vehicles have been damaged and 101 destroyed. Over the same period, 418 rescue service buildings have been damaged or destroyed. That's the way that Russia is conducting the war. But okay, so I said there's bad things happening to Russia. Oil refineries and the battlefield not being able to move or not gaining the territory that they thought. Here's another one. Sirens and loudspeakers are wailing across Russia, getting ready to meet the Tomahawks, maybe? Listen, this is in Russia, right? And so what you're hearing is the war coming home to Russia or about to come home to Russia. And so that's where we are today on October 1st. Okay, just a couple more things. Shout out to Daniel Downing. He's an undergraduate Patreon patron, and so thank you, Daniel. Last bit from Vladimir Zelensky today on the Day of Defenders of Ukraine. I met with our warriors who are now undergoing treatment after being wounded and with the medics who are helping them recover. Presented state awards to our defenders, guys from the Land Forces and Territorial Defense Forces, 138th Special Purpose Center, and Airborne Assault Forces. Thank you for standing with Ukraine, for your service, for defending our people. So that's Zelensky meeting them in the hospital. All right, that's all that I have. I want to leave you with a metaphor meme. Keys gave me the statement or the name for a metaphor. Yesterday I was talking about with the metaphor video. Here's a metaphor meme. This is how it's going for Russia right now. Everything's fine. No problem. We're doing everything's going according to plan. That's the metaphor meme. All right, my friends, that's all that I have. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. Can you hit that like button? It'll help this video spread. And by the way, I try to read all the comments I can. Tell me what you saw here and what I need to know. What am I missing? Where did I get it wrong? Thank you for that. I always appreciate being corrected. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.